Good morning. We're going to start our Memorial Day program with the song Tell My Father, performed by Jason Haldison, Cody Beller, Xavier Davis, Andrew Pulaski, and directed by Jennifer.
Tell my father that it's hard. served and paid the ultimate price. Holy God, we are so grateful for the freedom that we have this day to gather in this place, to a testament of our faith and our country and all those who have answered your call to serve and to sacrifice for the safety and the freedom of all. In your Son's name we pray.
You may be seated. On behalf of VFW Post 3964 and the auxiliary to VFW Post 3964, I would like to welcome you to today's 2014 Memorial Day program. For many people in our community and communities all over, Memorial Day is a busy weekend, but today we are taking some time to slow down and remember. Today we will honor those men and women who gave the supreme sacrifice of their life. As General John A. Logan, the Commander-in-Chief of the Grand Army, stated in 1868, this day is for the purpose of strewing with flowers and otherwise decorating the graves of the comrades who died in defense of their country during our late rebellions. So we gather here today to keep this great tradition alive. We will again ponder how different our lives would be without the sacrifices of the many men and women who have died so that we might live free. Following this program, please be sure to join us at Mountain Cemetery and at the pier as we decorate and pay homage to our many valiant veterans. Thank you for your attendance here today and your patriotism.
Good morning. I'm about to read an essay on what freedom means to me. What is freedom? Why do we have freedom? These are questions that make me stop and think. What are the freedoms I have, and do I appreciate them? Freedom brings out the best in people. Without freedom, we wouldn't know what we are capable of doing. If you had a ruler controlling your every decision, you probably wouldn't be going far in life. I wouldn't be going to college and studying the field of my desire. To me, freedom makes me such a happier person. We teenagers think that our parents are too controlling, so sometimes we tend to break the rules. The consequences with our parents are very minimal compared to people in other countries who break the rules of their leaders. If these people step out of line, it could cost them their life. I have spoken my mind many times before, and without the freedom we have been given, that wouldn't be possible. I hear people talking about politics constantly, whether this means bashing or praising, but without freedom they can be punished for saying what they think. With the freedom of speech, we also have the freedom of the press. In today's day and age, we are constantly involved in the media. People comment about politics and others all the time. Again, without freedom, we would not be able to post what's on our mind. We like to have our say in everything that goes on in our country, which is good. In order for our country to function correctly, I believe we need the input of the population. With the freedom to vote, we are able to have somewhat of a say in who runs our country. We may not always like the outcome, but we still have a say. Americans have a bad habit of not saying what they want and then just complaining about the outcome. Our country is a democracy and not a dictatorship, which is a wonderful freedom. Simplicity. We have the simplest lives. Other countries have to deal with the stress of doing everything all the ruler wants them to do. They need to do, say, and work wherever the leader desires. Here in America, our lives are carefree and laid back. We can work wherever our hearts desire and don't need anyone to tell us how to live. Our country is fearless. Our citizens know that we have a strong army and military system to protect us. The authorities, they obey the law and arrest people who are doing wrong, not just turn their head. Of course, there's crime, but we go to the authorities when we are scared or are in need of protection. Many countries don't know who they can trust. That just breaks my heart knowing that some children are scared for their lives when they go to sleep or just walk down the street. The government we have cares about Americans. If you're struggling to make money for you and your family, the government has a list of programs that can help you. If you're homeless or starving, you can go to a shelter for a place to stay at night and for a hot meal. The people of our country are generous and show their care for one another. I have stopped to think about all my freedoms and how lost I would be without them. I can't imagine a life without the freedom of press or speech or even the right to vote. I know I take these
Thank you, Taylor and Camille, for your readings. I'd also like to announce that Taylor and Camille will both receive a $1,000 scholarship from the VFW. Our speaker today was born and raised in Ortonville. After graduating from Ortonville High School, he enlisted in the Navy. After the Navy, he initially went to college in Washington and eventually graduated from Oregon State University with a triple degree in business and restaurant management. He worked for a pharmaceutical company for several years while living in the Twin Cities, but come back to Ortonville frequently. He retired to Ortonville about 5 years ago along with his wife Cheryl. They have 4 sons. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce King Oswald.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and my fellow comrades. Again, I'd like to welcome you to the 2014 Memorial Day celebration. I refer to this as a celebration because it is on this day that we celebrate the lives, these guys here, the National Guard, the lives of the people that put their lives on the line, the people that have served our country, and who have given so freely of themselves, ask for nothing in return, so that we today can enjoy the freedoms that Taylor talked about. We must never forget. As Dr. Al said, I was born and raised in Ortonville. Many of you probably remember me, and I can honestly say that I have changed over the years and I'm much more mellow. I'll give you a little brief history about my time in the service. In 1967, I enlisted in the Navy camp. I went to boot camp in San Diego. Unlike some of these people sitting up here that had the easy part of going to Great Lakes for a boot camp. Right, Mike? After boot camp, I went to medical corps school, graduated from there, and I was assigned to the Belleville Naval Hospital, where I worked on an orthopedic ward and attended to many wounded from Vietnam. I still remember, though, I was on board 26-3D. I think we had 40 vets on board, and usually at least half of the people that were on that ward were from motorcycle accidents. But all the Vietnam vets would come back and they would go out of their way to make these people feel better. They were never concerned about themselves. From the Naval Hospital in San Diego, I was transferred and I spent 18 months on Guam. And I think about the only person that I know from Ortonville that's ever been to Guam or spent any considerable time there was Jay Ross. Every once in a while we get together and we talk about it. It was a beautiful island, and between the nice ocean and the moony birds, I got along fine. From Guam, I was sent to Vietnam. I was assigned to the USS Sanctuary, which was a hospital ship in Penang. There, we really saw a lot of wounded. They were medevac out to us via helicopter. They were tended to. Many of them would recover and they'd be sent back to the country. Many others were shipped on back. When I was in Vietnam, I had the opportunity, one time, 4 years in the service, I ran into people twice from Ortonville. One time, it was in boot camp, I ran into Dan Haslin. Dan was on his way out. I was on my way in. And I often think today how he must have been laughing, knowing what I was about to go through. I was thinking, oh, this is a field trip. I'm from Ortonville. Everybody knows people from Ortonville. Boy, did I learn about that. he would pick up parasites, they'd get terribly sick, and he got medevac into us. And Jim was in town last week, and we were talking about this again, and he still remembers the first thing I ever said to him when he got shipped out to us. He's in a ward. Now this is a hospital ship. We're not talking big beds. We're not talking lots of rooms. We're talking 3 guys, one here in a bed, one here, and one down here. Fortunately, Jim was in the middle one. And I bend over and I poke him. He's kind of sleeping, and he wakes up, and he told me this the other day, and he says, and I'll paraphrase it. The only thing I said to him was, Carm, you look like crap, and you smelled even worse. About 3 or 4 months later, he gives medevac to us again. This time, same symptoms. It could have been a different disease, but I think he was there 3 or 4 days. Again, it's the last time he gets shipped off. But he forgot one thing when he left. He forgot the ailment that he had. And for the next 4 days, I was in the hospital, whatever parasite he picked up. And I had fevers of 104. I had chills like nobody would ever want to have. And the worst part of it is, I had what we routinely now refer to as Dr. Bob Ross's revenge. Inside joke. Some of you will understand. As long as I can remember, and I think it goes back to from when I was 4 or 5 years old, I've been going to Memorial Day services. I remember it started with my dad, and I just reflected back on this not too long ago. How proud my dad was to be there, how important for that generation. And I just couldn't grasp on. Then I was reflecting back and I thought, that was less than 10 years after the war. These guys were still fighting the war in their hearts and in their minds. This war was still on. It was so important to my dad for me to be there. My dad wanted me to grow up understanding what Memorial Day is. I remember coming up here in the old auditorium when the weather wasn't quite right, and they would start here with the ceremony, and then we would always march. There would be the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts and the colors they had, and we'd march up to the cemetery, and then we'd gather where we were this morning. I remember my dad, and everybody that remembers my dad could be a little emotional, but when you're 4, 5, 6 years old, and you're standing at what you think is an attention when they're playing when they're shooting the rifles and when they start the taps, and it's like yesterday, the tears would be rolling down my dad's cheeks, and I just couldn't understand. It's just, 4, 5, 6 years old. Matter of fact, it's really started now to affect me. I go with my comrades, I attend a lot of funerals, and I listen to taps a lot, and it really brings back to me those days. I think frequently when I hear taps of 3 of my classmates. Now, I didn't graduate with them. They were a couple of years older, but I think of Gerald Frederickson, Peter Hansen, Jimmy Gustafson. I think of the young men and women today that have chosen the honorary tradition to serve their country. I think of the National Guard, all that they do for us. We should be so proud in Ortonville of the National Guard that we have and the men and women that serve for us. Memorial Day is a reminder to me what makes this great nation. Generations, not just last 10, 15 generations, all the way back to the Revolutionary War. People have fought, died, been maimed just for us. Just for us. We must never, ever, ever forget that. I just ask right now, everybody in your minds to yourselves, think of a veteran that you know. It doesn't have to be one that's alive, it could be one that's passed. Think of somebody that served your country. This is their day. By thinking of them, you pay tribute to all that have served. Let us honor all of our veterans. Let us tell them thank you. Let us never, ever forget. Again, I thank you for the honor and privilege of speaking to all of you today. It has been a great pleasure for me, although I can't wait to go home and have a beer. So
serve our country. Please stand. At this point, I'd like all the kids and young adults 18 and under to come up to the stage, please. And you can just stand in case the audience. I would also like the veterans to stand, please. It's really nice to see all the young folks standing here today. The audience, because of these people, that we enjoy the freedoms that we have. And as Jean so rightly said today, we must, in addition to being thankful, we must never forget what they have done for our country. So on your way back to your seats, please take your time, stop, shake one of the vet's hand, and tell them thank you for what they've done for our country. Go ahead. I'd also like to extend our sincere appreciation to Gene Hausauer, Reverend Amy Atkins, Mr. Matt Lamb in the band, David Kuchmeicher, Camille Schobert, Jason Helgeson, Cody Peller, Xavier Davis, Andrew Pulaski, Jennifer Knight, and Charlie Company for their participation at today's ceremonies. Please rise as Reverend Amy Atkins leads us in the benediction and remain standing afterwards for right student caps and retirement flowers.
May we go forth from this place today, remembering and be filled with the same spirit of those who have served so faithfully in this country. May we know that the freedoms we have to live, to love, to make choices in this country are not free. They have a cost that has been paid for us this day and every day. May we go forth in the same spirit of love and sacrifice of all those that have served and those that have died for us. Go in peace.
Present arms. order, arms. Retire colors.